Text, Jobcast by Indeed. Life after layoff, 10 steps to bounce back. Brandy Warwas, job seeker experience. Brandy smiles.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jobcast. Today, we are talking about getting laid off and what your next step should be to jumpstart your job search. This topic is frankly near and dear to me, not only because so many people have been laid off this year, but also because it's happened to me. Before working at Indeed, I was laid off from my job in consulting, along with a significant number of other colleagues. And not only was I simply shocked, but I really had no idea where to go from there. So that's why I'm happy to be able to share these tips with you today. I want you to feel armed and ready to process this change and move forward successfully.
Text, meet your hosts, Romney Guy, VP of Workforce Development, Goodwill Fort Worth. Brandy Warwas, job seeker experience, Indeed. The information presented in this webinar is provided as a courtesy, and any views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Indeed. It does not represent a forecast, production, or other indication of future market or economic performance, and should not be relied upon for such purposes. Indeed is not a career or legal advisor and does not guarantee job interviews or offers.
I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker today, Romney Guy. Romney is the VP of Workforce Development and Mission Services for Goodwill Industries of Fort Worth. He has over 20 years of experience in workforce development. And that's me, Brandy Warwas. I'm on Indeed's Job Seeker Experience team. We're responsible for creating helpful resources and events like this Jobcast for our users, like you. Take it away, Romney.
Romney's video feed loads.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm really excited. Like Brandy said or mentioned, I also have a personal experience with being laid off. And so the one thing that I really want you to know is there's 31 million people, U.S. workers, that were laid off in 2020.
Text, source, Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey, JOLTS, U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, January through September 2020.
And so what I want you to take from that is that you're not alone. We're going to walk step by step through different ways that you can bounce back from this, and you will bounce back. I think that's the important thing to remember, is just that there are so many people going through this right now. They're going through the same emotions, but with that, there have been millions of people that have been laid off over the last several years, and all of those people, or most of them, have bounced back. And so we're going to give you a lot of tips and tricks to do that.
10 steps to bounce back from a layoff. 1. Confirm the layoff details. 2. Secure references. 3. File for unemployment. 4. Draw up a budget. 5. Practice self-care. 6. Determine what you're looking for next. 7. Update your resume and cover letter template. 8. Prepare to address layoff-related questions. 9. Reach out to your network. 10. Treat your job search like a job.
So I'm going to go through these one by one, just really quickly, and then we're going to go into each topic individually and in a little bit more detail. But there are 10 brackets that we broke things down into. And as Brandy mentioned before, we have some of you that mentioned you've been laid off in the last couple of weeks, and we have some of you that, it's been several months. And so we wanted to kind of have a broad range of things we talked about, because everybody's at a different point in their journey. So we're going to start with, the initial things, confirming layoff details. So whether you are joining us because you feel like, hey, it's impending, I think my company is going to go through a series of layoffs, or whether you've recently been laid off or been laid off for a while, we're going to go through and talk about, number one, confirming the layoff details. Then we're going to go through a little bit on securing references, filing for unemployment, drawing up a budget, practicing self-care, which is super important, but it's one of the top things that everybody forgets to do. Determine what you're looking for next, updating your resume, cover letters and things like that, and some resources to do that. preparing to address layoff questions with future employers, how you do that, and some ideas on how to do that. We're going to talk a little bit about reaching out to your network, and last but not least, the most important, treating your job search like a job.
1. Confirm the layoff details.
We're going to go into the first thing that we had mentioned, which is confirming the layoff details.
Were you laid off or furloughed? An employee is laid off when their position is no longer needed, for reasons other than their work performance. A furlough is a required reduction in hours or suspension from work without pay from an employer. Employers usually furlough employees as a cost-saving measure to avoid laying off their staff but cannot continue paying them per usual.
There are two different types of layoffs, or two categories. One is actually being laid off, and that's when, for whatever reason, the employer decides, financially that they need to cut positions, and those are not people that they're planning on bringing back. And then there's what they call a furlough. And a furlough is where they've taken a required reduction in hours or suspension from work, but they plan on bringing those employees back. One of the important things to remember is whether you're laid off or furloughed, starting the process and starting to put into place some of the things that we're going to talk about today is super important, because sometimes a furlough can turn into a layoff.
A person checks a box on a clipboard.
What to ask about first. You want to ask about health insurance coverage. Are they going to pay for it? Are you going to pay for it? What's going to be available, and so on. You want to ask about severance pay. I think that's a really important topic. I remember when I was laid off, nobody had really told me much about being laid off. You're so shocked, you usually don't know what to ask. And after the fact, I had a friend say, well, did you ask for severance? And I said, no, I didn't think I could do that. And they told me, no, it's really important to do, and you can go back and ask for it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that because, it's kind of embarrassing. And what if they say no? And they were like, well, what's the worst they can say is no. So I actually went back and addressed that with the employer and asked for severance, and I got it. And it was very surprising to me because I didn't know you could do that. So that's something to keep in mind, because every little bit helps while you're trying to build a foundation. When it first happens, you're really in that fight or flight mode. Even when you suspect it's happening, like for me, all the little signs were there, and I thought, okay, it could happen. But there's part of you that really still doesn't believe it's going to happen. And so when it does, you're kind of in that fight or flight mode. And it's hard to search for a job and to find some sense of security when you're in that mode. So one of the first things that you want to do is build that financial security, or that budget, and some of those things that we're going to talk about in a bit. But you want to ask for severance. You want to ask when you're getting your final paycheck, because that's going to go into building your budget. You want to find out what's going to happen with your 401k. Many people don't know that furlough and being laid off are two of the things that qualify you many times to pull down or draw down from your 401k. And normally I would never advocate for taking anything out of your 401k or touching it. But at the same time, in a situation like this, if you can draw down a portion of that, it will help you build your financial base that will kind of help you get through this time period. So definitely, if you didn't get information about that, and that is something relevant to you, make sure that you reach out to your employer and find out more about that. Also, turning in computer or other work materials, you need to ask questions about that and make sure that each thing is turned back in and finalized with your past employer so that you can start moving forward.
2. Secure references.
The second thing we're going to talk about is securing references. Securing references is super important when you're out looking for a job. It always helps. 99% of employers are going to ask for them. So if you already have that ready and available, it really helps.
Text parting on good terms. An example recommendation letter format with 5 parts. 1. Introduction and statement of recommendation. 2. List of specific reasons you are recommending them to the position. 3. Personal story with evidence of their qualities, hard and soft skills. 4. Closing statement with contact information. 5. Signature.
When you're parting on good terms, ask permission to list a manager or colleagues, and ask if you can use them as potential references for future employers to contact. Ask for a letter of recommendation. So asking for a letter of recommendation is really important. One of the things I was going to recommend too is if you ask for a letter of recommendation, it's really helpful to kind of put something together. And we have an example here on our slide of the format for that. I know being on both ends, being laid off in the past, but then on, just recently being the one that had to lay off employees. It's really helpful when you already have something just drafted with some of your skills, some of the things that you did while you were at the company, and you say, hey, would you mind doing a letter of reference for me? I kind of etched something out just as a basic guide, but if you could do something like this. When I had to recently lay off, the first letters I did were the people who gave me an etched out version that I could just take really quickly, add some things to it, and kick it back to them. It's really helpful because usually in a layoff, there's more than one person, and more than one person are coming back at the employer and asking certain things. So if you can already have something etched out, it's really helpful, and you're more likely to get it back and get it back quicker. So as you can see here, we put on the slide, you want to start with an introduction and statement of the recommendation, then list a list of specific reasons you are recommending or why the employer is recommending you. Maybe a personal story with evidence of the different qualities that you have, and then a closing statement. So like I said, even if you're not putting together a formalized letter, if you just etch out, hey, if you could give me a recommendation, I wanted to remind you that these are a few things that I did during my career that really helped build our department or help build our company. It's a lot easier for them to put something together, and you're more likely to get it back quicker.
3. Filing for unemployment.
The next thing we're going to talk about is filing for unemployment, and this goes into building that base and getting out of that fight or flight mode. A lot of people who end up being laid off have never filed for employment, and they don't know what to do. I was in that position. I was kind of like, I've never done this. I never thought I would have to do this, and I wasn't really sure what to do.
Papers float above a cartoon person's desk. Text, what is unemployment insurance?
So we're going to go into a little bit about what unemployment insurance is. It's a government program that aims to provide temporary financial support to eligible workers who have lost their jobs. Each state maintains its own requirements for filing for unemployment and receiving unemployment benefits, and also on how much you're going to receive.
Are you eligible? Activity-report.indeed.com. Eligibility requirements vary by state. Connect with your state unemployment office to see if you may be eligible. A screenshot of an Indeed's job seeking activity report. Text, this page enables you to export a log of your previous applications on Indeed. This list of your completed applications may be helpful for personal record keeping tasks related to your job search, like filling out a work search activity log. Know that this report only includes applications you submitted on the Indeed website or mobile app and will not include applications you submitted on an employer's website. Select a date range for your activity log.
Are you eligible?
So basically, if you're unemployed through no fault of your own, as in you were laid off or furloughed, you may be able to be eligible for unemployment insurance. It does differ in terms of requirements from state to state, but you'll usually need to show evidence of work history, that you've had regular wages or salary in the past, that you are actively willing to work, and that you're actively looking for work. And one thing that Indeed has actually recently created this year, since so many people were laid off and having to go through the process of showing that they're actively looking for work, is we created this job seeking activity report. And the link is here, activity-report.indeed.com. And that allows you to export a log of all of the applications you've submitted through Indeed. So that way you have an export file that you can then use to show evidence that you've been actively looking for work. So if you are filing for unemployment, be sure to check that feature out, as well as looking into the eligibility requirements for your state specifically.
Thank you, Brandy.
Applying for unemployment insurance. Find your state's unemployment insurance program site, careeronestop.org. Search unemployment plus state. Go to indeed.com/state resources. A screenshot of Career One Stop Unemployment Benefits Finder.
Applying for unemployment insurance. So there is a national site that you can go to. It's called Career One Stop, and it has information about each state's unemployment. You can go on there and search unemployment plus your state, and it'll give you a list of resources. Also, you can go to indeed.com/state resources, and it'll give you that same information. It has some very useful things on there, and it tells you kind of how they formulate things and what you will most likely get from your state and things like that.
Text 4. Draw up a budget.
Drawing up a budget. So going back to that fight or flight, it's really difficult to move forward, be positive, and start looking for a job if you're in that fight or flight mode. So drawing up a budget is super important to build a base so that you can move forward.
A cartoon hand holds a stack of money.
Determine how much you'll need. 6 to 9 months of living expenses is typically what they say to look at. Hopefully you'll get a job quickly, but realistically it could take 6 to 9 months. In that budgeting process, look at what you'll need to survive. How much for food, how much for shelter, how much for utilities and transportation. Estimate a bit higher than your average monthly expenses, because there's always something that pops up that you're not expecting. And then look at contacting banks and creditors to see if they'll give you a little bit of relief. So many bankers, especially now during COVID, are giving a reprieve from paying for a certain amount of time, and even putting it off a couple of months. A couple of months of not having to pay a mortgage is a huge thing. If you're in an apartment, a lot of apartment complexes are working with their renters to give a couple of months relief. There's also many city level programs. Money has come down through the federal government for COVID relief, and a lot of cities are giving out money for rent. If you need help connecting with some of those services, contacting your local Goodwill. A lot of Goodwills have job resource centers where they will connect you with local resources. They know where to go to get assistance with food, shelter, utilities, transportation. So that could take a little bit of relief off of your budget.
5. Practice self-care.
Practice self-care. So I think this is a really big thing. Just going through the process myself, practicing self-care is super important. It's one of the things that we usually do the least because we feel guilty. Speaking from experience, when I was laid off, it was like, I shouldn't be doing that because I'm not working right now. And everything needs to be focused on getting a job and focused on this and that. But practicing self-care and allowing time for that is super important.
A cartoon person browses a tablet while a cat strolls nearby.
Don't neglect your mental health. Allow yourself to come to terms with your emotions about being laid off, because everybody has emotions about that. Accept what is out of your control. Block time out for relaxing activities you enjoy and de-stressing, and then positive self-talk. So whenever those things come into your head, like, I should have a job by now, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, those are the things that you need to block out, and then immediately have a different script that you put in your head. And so for me, it was, I'm not doing enough, or I should have a job by now, or anybody else in my position would be doing X, Y, and Z. And immediately when I would have those thoughts, I would stop and go, this is normal. everybody in this situation, it takes a period of time to be able to find something new. Whatever those things are that for you, you can replace those things, and just not allowing yourself, don't allow those thoughts to have space, rent free. Stop and then immediately just change that thought process, and that'll help you from spiraling down in that depression that is so common when you're laid off.
Yeah, and I think that the importance of this aspect of, self-care when you're laid off is honestly one of the more challenging parts of being laid off, especially this year where mental health is already taking a hit, with the pandemic and everything that's going on. It
Mhm.
is more important than ever to just check in with yourself, make sure that you are avoiding that negative self-talk, and keep up your motivation by keeping your reserves high. If that means you need to block out time to relax, or just try and get the job search out of your head, block that time if you need it.
Brandy smiles. 6. Determine what you're looking for next.
Yes. Determine what you're looking for next.
A cartoon person holds a tablet next to two rectangles. One rectangle contains an X. The other contains two circles with a less than sign in between.
Reflect on your last role. What did you enjoy about your job? What did you enjoy that you did day to day? What did you hate about your job? What kind of things that, if you had the opportunity, would you have delegated to somebody else? Looking at all that stuff, and figuring out what you want to do next. Because you can go into this either thinking, I just need to get something, or you can take it as an opportunity to be excited about reinventing yourself, looking at all the things that you've learned, because every job teaches you something. It teaches you what you like, what you don't like, and this is an opportunity to go down a different path.
Text, look ahead down your career path. A cartoon person opens a door.
So, what attributes are you looking for in an employer? Are there opportunities and growth in the industry that you're in, or do you want to do something different? If you want to do something different, this may be the time to reinvent yourself and do something different. Is there a particular schedule that's best for you? Maybe before working, the morning shift or 8 to 5 worked really well, but now with COVID and with other things, and maybe kids at home doing virtual learning or whatever, maybe the evening shift is better. So looking at all those things and not being afraid to map out what does good look like for me, what does best look like for me, and what does better look like for me, and shooting for better.
Text, do you want to get addition training?
There's no reason why not only you know don't have the opportunity to bounce back, but you have the opportunity to bounce back better. Another thing I'd like to discuss is exploring careers. Like I said, this is an opportunity if you want to reinvent yourself that you can. There is a lot of different tools.
Explore careers. Learn more about career paths with information on job satisfaction, skills, and more. Compare pay by city, read tips on making more money in your field, and get answers to your career questions. Indeed.com careers. A screenshot of Indeed's career page.
One of those is exploring careers on Indeed, indeed.com/career. And this is kind of what it looks like, but you can go in there and look at different pays for different careers, by city, uh, reading tips on making more money in your field, and get different career questions answered.
Yeah, I'll jump in here as well. This is a really neat new offering from Indeed that lets you explore different career paths, and specifically you can check what skills or requirements the employers are asking for those career paths, as well as see job postings that relate to the career path. But that skills section will be really handy if you're trying to change industries or change roles, just to see where you need to upskill, fill that gap, or if your current skills are transferable and would be a good match for the new role.
Brandy smiles. 7. Update your resume and cover letter templates.
Update your resume and cover letter templates. So there's a lot of different resume and cover letter templates that are available to you, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel or try to come up with something on your own.
A screenshot of Indeed's resume template.
You can build your resume on Indeed. So simple formatting. It has very simple formatting. It's easily you can easily apply. You can have it in a place where employers can search your resume. And one of the great things about the partnership between Indeed and Goodwill is your local job resource center can assist you. So you can either go on Indeed yourself and navigate that and look at it. And they have a lot of different tools on there that you can use that are very simple to use. Or you can reach out to a local job center and they can assist you in building your resume using the Indeed tools. And it's all of that is free.
Text Indeed.com/career advice. A screenshot of Indeed's cover letter samples page.
You can browse resume and cover letter samples on there. It's really nice because they have a whole collection of different resumes and cover letters examples for a variety of industries and job titles based on those most contacted for that specific job title. So they've looked at, okay, when people have these key things, it seems like employers are reaching out to them more, and they looked at what are those things that all of those people that are being successful have in common, and they put together these templates based on that. And so you have a lot more opportunity by using these templates, making them your own, but using these templates to apply for the specific job that you're applying for, because they've been shown to be more successful.
Yep, no need to recreate the wheel or start from scratch if you can. Utilize templates and make your resume and cover letter a template that you can then customize for each job that you apply for, even, or if you're applying to jobs that are slightly different roles, you may want to tweak what past experience or skills that you're featuring, but make sure you have that template to start from.
Brandy smiles. Text source Indeed Data US.
So an Indeed insider tip: update your resume at least once a month. I didn't know this, but if you're actively looking for a new job, updated resumes get pushed to the top of employers' resume searches. And so, they want to keep it relevant and keep the newer people coming into the system kind of towards the top. And so if you go in and you update it, you're 3 times more likely to get contacted by an employer if you update your resume. So even if it's just tweaking it slightly, go in there and tweak it slightly because you're going to be more at the top of the search pile, and you want to be at the top of the search pile.
Exactly. That just shows the employers that you're actively looking as well.
8. Prepare to address layoff-related questions.
Prepare to address layoff-related questions. So I think this is a really important thing. A lot of people get nervous about how am I going to answer that. I went through that whole process of, well, should I even bring it up? Should I, just kind of tuck it in there? Like maybe I left and I didn't get laid off, because I think for me, it was just a stigma I put on myself of being laid off, not realizing that it happens to a lot of people every year. And it's not something to be ashamed of. So addressing why you left or why you were laid off from your job, there's certain things that are really important. Number one, be honest. If you can bring it up yourself or address it yourself before the employer asks the question, bring it into the interview, you're taking control of that situation and you look more confident. Be positive when you're talking about the layoff. Keep it super brief. If you don't have it planned out ahead of time, you're more likely to ramble, and that shows lack of self-confidence, or that you have some doubt about why they laid you off. So if you can address it yourself and be positive and keep it brief, Those are all things that show confidence. Use numbers. So if you are able to look at and see, okay, about 20% of the workforce got laid off, or 25% of my department, and you can use those numbers in your explanation, that helps. Highlighting your work. So talking about the work that you've done with that employer, the things that you learned. I learned this skill and this skill, and I was able to bring this to my department, or these creative ideas that then branched us out into a new business, or whatever that is. Add that stuff in. Be prepared with references. Let them know that you have references that are willing to speak on your behalf. Show you added value. So what are the highlights? Just think of 3 key highlights, 3 things that you did while you were there, or that show that you added value, and you can bring that into the conversation. Discuss how you advanced your skills. No matter what the job is, you're always going to learn something from that job. So show how you learned from that job and what you could then bring to the new employer. And then also explain what you learned. So discussing how you advanced your skills and explaining what you learned from those skills and what you can bring to the employer are always positive. So an example of that is like if an employer during the interview process says, why did you leave your last job? We kind of put an example here of putting all those different pieces together. You could say my employer underwent a downsizing due to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Over 25% of my team's roles had been eliminated. It was difficult, but I left with the confidence that I had developed important skills there and built relationships with management and others. And as you can see from my references, I added value to that team, and I know that I can add value to your team, or however you want to build that you kind of put all those pieces in, you keep it short and sweet, and you're able to answer that question and then have that eliminated from the rest of the interview process, and start talking about what you have to offer.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to highlight that you mentioned is just staying positive. So if you are pivoting in any way with the role you're interviewing for, or roles you're looking at, include that as well. Say, it was a difficult experience, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to focus on a job that, better fits what I'm looking for out of my career, or, make it clear that, it happened, but you're really positive about your path forward.
Brandy smiles. Text 9. Reach out to your network.
Yes. And then think about reaching out to your network. Everybody has a network. So I remember when they first started talking about reach out to your network, I was like, who do I reach out to, and how do I do that? And what exactly is my, what have I included in my network? One of the most common is LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn profile and you have networking there, but also just thinking about when you went out to business events, when you were interfacing with other businesses, just even people when you do things socially, that's part of your network, because those people are employed or they know other employers, and you never know how reaching out to even one person in your network is going to make all the difference in getting another job.
2 cartoon people meet with coffee. Text, call on your contacts. Reach out to people in your network and inquire about open jobs in your field and whether they would be willing to put in a good word for you with potential employers.
Calling on those contacts, like I said, reaching out in the network, inquire about jobs in your field. If you're interested in a new field, ask your contacts, hey, do you know anybody in that field that I can talk to, that I can just kind of bounce some questions off of? I'm thinking about upskilling and taking some classes so that I can get into a new career field. Do you know anybody I can talk to? Because sometimes just talking and asking questions about that career field and showing an interest, you never know what they may have open then or going forward, and you'll be top of mind with them.
Definitely. And we have an entire other job cast entirely dedicated to how to network online, which is what many of us are doing these days rather than going to networking events or anything like that.
Text Jobcast Networking Online. Go.indeed.com/networking online.
So I posted that link in the chat. So definitely check that out. But it is so important to tap into that network, to get connections, whether it's your previous colleagues. So even the place you were just laid off from, make sure you have contact information for the people you worked with that know that you're a good worker. And maybe they can connect you with someone who is looking for a job, or maybe they know about someone who, is working for a specific company where they're hiring. So don't leave any stone unturned.
Brandy smiles. Text 10. Treat your job search like a job.
Treat your job search like a job. And so we're going to go into a little bit about what that means. It's really easy to get depressed, like I mentioned. That's really common. It's really,
Romney holds up her hands in a floating gesture.
when it first happens and you're in that fight or flight mode, and then you just kind of feel like you're out, floating in space, not able to get grounded. Once you can build a budget and do some of the other things that we mentioned, um, and you stabilize yourself, the next thing is finding a way to make a regular schedule, treating it like a job.
Cartoon hands shade in a box on a calendar.
So some of the ways to do that is set aside time for your job search activities, plotting out a schedule, set daily and weekly goals for yourself. Like, I'm going to apply for X number of jobs. I'm going to network with X number of contacts, and things like that. Set other daily goals and weekly goals for searching, applying, networking time, upskilling time. I think that's one of the most important things, is that you set a schedule, you stick to it, and just having a schedule will make you feel more grounded, and it'll make you feel like you're making progress, because you can actually see, I set out these goals for myself and I met them. And then, it's just like anything. If you're out, I'll use the analogy of fishing. You're out fishing and you're throwing something into the pond to try to catch a fish. Well, if you have multiple fishing poles and you're throwing them out and you're leaving them out there, you're more likely to catch a fish. The more activity you're doing towards your job search, the better off you are, and you feel a sense of accomplishment. It's real easy during that. I remember during that time just feeling like, I'm doing certain things, but, is it really making a difference? And so it's really easy to get into that negative self-talk and just into that not good place. But if you have a regular schedule and you're treating it like a job, not only are you more likely to get a job, but you're going to stay focused, and you're going to be able to give yourself credit for things like, when you have those thoughts of, oh my gosh, but I haven't gotten a job yet, you can go, well, but you know what? I put in 20 applications this week. I talked to an employer. I networked for a couple of hours. You can also add time in there to upskill. So you might want to either stay in the career you're in, but better your skills by doing something like a digital skills class, to improve your digital skills, because technology is always changing. Or it may be something more expansive, like, I want to get an Adobe certification. I want to get a CompTIA or HVAC certification, whatever that is. You can add that into your daily schedule, and then that can be another tool in your toolbox that can help you either gain a job in your field or take that next step where in reinventing yourself and going down a different career path. And it goes a lot quicker than you think it will.
Yeah. And, it's so important when you meet those goals that you set out for, however many jobs you save or apply to, or networking emails you send, make sure you celebrate those and reward yourself. That goes back to the self-care. There are some things during the job search that aren't going to be within your control. For instance, if an employer gets back to you, that's a big pain point for a lot of job seekers, is that application black hole. And that can, be really difficult time. So remember to celebrate the little wins along the way. And when it comes to searching and applying, definitely just keep going, but also make sure that you're applying to the right job. So sometimes it's really tempting to just apply to everything that you see that you could potentially be qualified for, but you're going to see more success if you're applying to jobs that are the right fit, for you being the right fit for the job, and also the job being the right fit for you. And also, if you are upskilling or looking to gain more skills for a new role, mention that when you're networking. Mention that in your networking emails. Say, I'm taking these steps, or if you're not sure what steps to take, you can put that in the email as well. Say, I'm looking to get into, X field. You've been successful in this field. Do you have any suggestions for online courses or certifications that I should take to help me get there?
I think those are all really good points. And also taking, going back to self-care in your schedule, make sure you're blocking out times. Like, maybe I'm going to block out 20 minutes to go take a walk around the neighborhood and just de-stress, but also do something towards my physical health. Just make sure you're doing whatever that is for you that works. Make sure you're putting in breaks for self-care.
Text, keep track of jobs and applications. Save jobs and easily find them later on Indeed's My Jobs page when you are ready to apply. myjobs.indeed.com. A screenshot of Indeed's My Jobs page in a browser and on a mobile device.
Another neat tip or thing that I think is really cool is Indeed just started this thing where you can keep track of jobs and applications. You can save jobs easily, find them later on Indeed. It's on Indeed's My Jobs page. And when you're when you are ready to apply, they're there. So you don't have to each time stop and apply, stop and apply. So you can save all of them and then go in and apply at once, which is a nice thing, because then you can have just standard things like, okay, I'm doing my job search. Now I'm going to apply. You can kind of put that in order and go back to things, but it's a really neat tool that they have.
Yeah, this was one of my biggest struggles when I was unemployed, was just keeping track of all of the applications as well as the job postings that I hadn't yet applied to, that I wanted to apply to. And it's so helpful to just have that all in one place. And also, once you move to, say you get a phone call from an employer and they want to interview you.
Brandy brings her hands to her head. Her eyes widen.
And, you're like, oh man, I applied to so many companies, can't even remember which job they're talking about. You have it saved in My Jobs that you can refer back to. And you can even change your status in My Jobs to interviewing. So you can keep track of the status there as well, which is a really neat feature. And it'll also show you, actually, and this is a new feature, approximately a range of how many applicants there are for that job. So you can see how competitive it is.
Text, automate your search. Set up job alerts to be the first to find out about new opportunities. Subscriptions.indeed.com. A screenshot of Indeed's job alerts page.
And one other thing I wanted to mention on the Indeed platform is that you can automate your search through job alerts. So once you figure out what you want to put in the what and where boxes on Indeed to find jobs that are relevant for you, you can automate that, set or activate an alert, and that way you'll get emails with new jobs that fit that category, either daily or weekly, depending on your settings. And you can always go back into the settings and change that later if you get a job, or if you want to, apply for different types of jobs and you're no longer interested in those.
Brandy smiles. Text, fill the gap. A cartoon person browses a newspaper.
So now we're going to talk about filling the gap. So some of the ways that you can fill the gap is to earn certifications relevant to your industry, like we were talking about, take continuing education courses, and to kind of give a reference point, you can, not all that stuff costs money. Your local workforce commission, where you go to apply for unemployment, most of the time for people who are unemployed, who are on unemployment, they have a certain amount of set aside funds, and they'll pay for you to get either a relevant certification, or if you're wanting to do something different, a different career path, they'll pay for that. They'll also pay for a lot of continuing education courses. So don't think, okay, because I don't have that in my budget, there's no way I can do that. There are a lot of organizations, also nonprofits, a lot of Goodwills. I know my Goodwill has 27 different virtual credentials that people can do. So they don't even have to go in somewhere. During the pandemic, that's been really great for a lot of people. They can take them online. But that's one of the things that you can do to fill that gap of time. And it's something that's actually moving you forward. Be active in professional associations. A lot of those, once again, because of the pandemic, I'm not saying there's any time that's great to be laid off, but if I was going to, if it was going to happen right now, there are so many things that are virtual that you can do that when I was laid off were not available to me. But a lot of the chambers of commerce have different types of networking that they're going virtual with. There's a lot of things through your local workforce commission. I know Indeed and other, there's other venues to be able to do networking and take classes and just upskill. Also, another thing is volunteering. So you can volunteer. There's a lot of nonprofits right now that have also had to downsize. And so they're needing all the help they can get. And many of them had to downsize at a point when they're getting double, triple, quadruple the number of people through their system. So most nonprofits have not only virtual based volunteering that you can do, but they also have some in person. So consider volunteering. You never know who you're going to meet there. Most nonprofits, or all nonprofits, have a board of directors, and those boards of directors are everything from lawyers to bankers to people in retail, to all different types of local education providers and things like that. And so you never know who you're going to meet and who is going to have a connection in that nonprofit, whether it's a board member or a staff member, to other people out in the larger employment field that would be like, oh, I know this great volunteer, and we were talking, and they're looking, and you were saying you were looking for somebody with marketing skills. Well, they seem super positive and they volunteered with us. You never know when those connections are going to make all the difference in the world. Networking is super important. Then, and it's also a great way to fill your time and feel good because you're giving back to the community. Get a bridge job is another thing. So, right now with your budget, you may need a bridge job. You may not have the luxury of just waiting a long period of time. You may need something that isn't going to be your dream job and isn't going to be your long-term job, but it's something to as a bridge gap. There are many temporary agencies that do temp to perm jobs where you can not only go in and work, but you may end up getting hired on full time. A lot of employers, excuse me, especially in an economic downturn, will hire temporary because they don't yet want to say we're going to fully add these jobs back in. So they'll hire temporary, and it's a way for them to try out people and see, is this going to work? And then they'll hire them on. So a bridge job could be a permanent job. You never know who in that sphere you're going to meet that can connect you to somebody. That's how I got my job at Goodwill. I was working a temporary job, hoping to get my job, and somebody who I was working at that temporary job with, the owner of that company, was actually on the board of directors at Goodwill Industries. So like I said, you never know where those connections are going to lead you. And so a bridge job not only helps fill in that gap, but it helps, with financially while you're waiting to find something. And then it also gives you relevant job experience, more things that you can put on your resume.
Text, learn more from Goodwill. As nearly all Goodwills have reopened, contact your local Goodwill to confirm Career Center hours. Goodwill.org/locator. Goodwill logo. Facebook.com/GoodwillIntl, Twitter.com/GoodwillIntl, Instagram.com/GoodwillIntl, YouTube.com/GoodwillIntl.
So also, to kind of tie things up, learn more from Goodwill. Goodwills exist all over the country. Nearly all Goodwills have reopened their local career centers. They're a way to help get people employed. A lot of people don't realize that every 3 minutes of every day, somebody is getting employed through Goodwill. A lot of people think, oh, I see job center, that means they're hiring for their stores. Well, yes, we hire for our stores, but the money that comes off our stores is used for community programs, and those community programs are free. Some of them, each Goodwill is different. They have different types of programming, but many have, different types of credentials you can earn. They also have connections to local employers. And then through our partnership with Indeed, we can help you do resumes and things like that. And we have the link there, goodwill.org/locator. That is where you can go to locate your local Goodwill and find out where their job resource center is located.
Brandy smiles.
Thanks, Romney. So I know we are going over our allotted time, but I'd still love to do a couple of questions that came in. So I'll kick us off right now. The first top voted question was, what about us older people? Any advice?
The first thing I would say is, age is irrelevant. And I know when you're older, it's like, because when I had gotten laid off, I was later into my career, and I was at an executive level. And for me, it was a lot of fear, because I was like, I'm going to be competing against people that are 15 years younger than me. I'm going to be competing against people who are just entering the market and things like that. And there's a lot of value. I know right now, being on the other end of that and hiring people, there's a lot of value to people that have been in the workforce a long time. They've built up their skills. If I can see longevity, any kind of longevity, because so many people bounce from career to career, for me, that's an asset. And there's also a lot of job searching things and organizations out there just specifically for older people.
Senior Community Service Employment Program, SCSEP. http://www.goodwill.org/SCSEP.
CSEP program is one, and your local Goodwill can connect you, or you can just research online CSEP. It's SCEP, the CSEP program, but it's specifically geared for older employees and helping them find or connect to employment after they've been laid off, or through other means have lost their jobs.
Yeah, and we actually recently did a jobcast entirely dedicated to avoiding ageism in the job search.
Jobcast, Avoiding Ageism, go.indeed.com/ageism.
So definitely check that out. We talk about some specific tips on how to remove the age factor from your resume while still presenting all of your experience. So definitely check those out from our Jobcast page. Another question here is, the ATS, or applicant tracking system, seems to truly be a stumbling block for many of us. I've read that 75% of applicants are rejected by ATS, even when qualified, because resumes don't necessarily have critical keywords or phrases. What are your recommendations to pass the ATS and get noticed? Now, I will jump in here and say that we do have a Jobcast coming up in a couple of weeks, specifically on readying your resume, and getting by the ATS is a big part of that.
Jobcast, Ready Your Resume, go.indeed.com/readyyourresume.
But those keywords are really necessary. Unfortunately, the ATS can't really take in every resume and understand who you are as a person. They have to use technology to decide if your resume matches the job description. So the best tip I can give on getting past the ATS is to make sure you're looking at the job description and you pull the keywords directly from there, especially if they're using, any different language from what's in your resume now that may mean the same thing, but they're just using a different word for it. Use their words, because that's what they're going to be searching for, and that's what the ATS is going to be set up to find in your resume. And if you are applying to a lot of jobs that are varied and different and would therefore need different keywords, then have separate resumes for it.
Brandy smiles.
Anything to add, Romney?
No, the same thing. That was the same thing I was going to say, is like looking for the keywords, because usually if they're going to do that, they're using those same keywords. So if you can implement those into your resume, and that's part of what we were talking about earlier too, with resumes and cover letters, making them individualized and having a bunch of different ones. And the Indeed resource for that is really helpful.
Yeah, another question that's particularly relevant right now. What if you're afraid of going back into the workplace, or you don't have experience working from home? And similarly, what if you're afraid of getting COVID in your new workplace?
Do you have any advice for people seeking remote jobs or who are working from home for the first time during COVID-19?
Any thoughts on that?
I think one of the things is right now, so many companies have improvised and gone virtual. Once again, just from my personal experience, we have, because we do social service programs and job related programs, all of those were in person, and we had to immediately do a 180-degree turn and move to all virtual based things. There are a lot more virtual based jobs than what you realize right now. And so if you're not ready to go into a physical job, but you more specifically are looking for something from home, there's a lot more jobs that are offered from home. I'll give you an example. Out of the 72 staff that I have that report to me, prior to this, we had 0 working from home, and we have 70 working from home now. So that is an option, and that is out there, and you just have to refine your job search to look for jobs, that are virtual based. And don't be afraid to ask that too. There's a lot of employers that are posting, like I have some of my jobs posted out there, but I'm not necessarily saying working from home. And the reason I'm not doing that is because it's not going to be forever. It's going to be during COVID. So there are a lot more opportunities, I think, than what you realize out there.
Absolutely. And Indeed actually recently added a filter specifically for remote jobs and even temporarily remote jobs. So if an employer indicated that, it's not going to be remote forever, but it is for now, definitely look into using that filter when you're searching if you are worried about going into an office during COVID. Before I wrap up, I just want to reiterate that I know getting laid off is hard, and finding a new job is even harder. But if you follow these steps that we talked through today and you stay motivated, you're going to find a job and you're going to move forward.
Check out our other jobcasts. Register for an upcoming virtual workshop or watch on demand. go.indeed.com/jobcast. A screenshot of the Indeed Jobcast page.
And if you found this to be helpful, check out our other jobcasts. I know I mentioned several of them. The easiest way to find those is just go to go.indeed.com/jobcast, and you'll see them all listed there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below.
Brandy smiles. Text Jobcast by Indeed.